No April Fool's jokes here for the 1st of April. Hello and welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson. And Kylie, as much as I want to try to be funny, try to do things that are not serious today, it's a very serious conversation. I'm sounding like I'm not serious, aren't I?
Just a little. I'm trying to work out where you're going.
Having too much fun. Every Tuesday on the pod, we answer your questions. Your tricky questions about family and relationships and well-being and screens and discipline and all those challenges. If you have a sticky, tricky question that you'd like to submit, jump onto our website, happyfamilies.com.au. There's a spot where we've got our podcasts where you literally click the button and start talking. Alternatively, you can send us a voice note to podcasts@happyfamilies.com.au. Today, our question is as follows. It's a question from an anonymous source who says, I'd love some insight and some suggestions on what to do. My 8-year-old boy is being difficult at home. He's very self-centered. I know that kids are, but more so than our other three. He cries in tantrums if he doesn't get what he wants or doesn't get to sit where he wants. He's never kind to his brothers. He never thinks of others. He says mean things. Then when you pull him up nicely and say, would you like it if that was said to you, to try to help him understand the situation and see it from the other side, he shrugs and says, I don't care. I've realised he hasn't been invited to any birthday parties from school this year, and he doesn't have any solid friends. He just plays with a few different kids, depending on how he feels on the day, as he will only play games he wants to. I don't know how to get him to be considerate of others, how to care, how to empathise with others, and just be genuinely nice. Any thoughts of advice on directions with him? We've tried to be gentle and explain situations that happen at home to help him understand, and they just seem to go over his head, and he doesn't care. And Kylie, these are the tough ones, right? You've got these kids that you love so much and they seem oblivious. They seem completely unwilling to engage with you on anything that could help them to do better.
You and I have had lots of conversations over the years and as we've kind of, I guess, compared our children, all 6 of them, we've looked at each other sometimes and gone, how is it possible that this child is so different in the way they perceive things, in the way that they react to things, in the way that they view the world? It seems so foreign to me at times that they could be our child based on their experiences. And a little while ago, I watched a small snippet of an interview and a psychologist was being asked about the fact, how is it possible that you were raised in the same house by the same parents and yet your experience has been so different from that of your siblings? And his acknowledgement was that we weren't. The way we interact with each person is different because we are all individuals. So in spite of the fact that you think that you're parenting each child exactly the same, you're not. And so with that idea, I think it just gives us insight into the fact that each of our children will be different and they're going to respond to the world differently, and that's okay. It's not a slight on us as parents that clearly we're doing something wrong because this child is not like the others. But I think it helps us to understand them a bit better. They're supposed to be different.
So we've jotted down a number of things that we do need to talk about, but thinking about this question, something has really stood out to me that we didn't write down, and I want to start with this. And that is that as I look at this anonymous mum's comments, what I sense is going on here is that there's a lot of talking and not a lot of listening. And I know that with an 8-year-old, when you try to listen and they say, I don't know, that is a bit of a conversation stopper, right? You go, oh, okay, we're not making any progress, so let me just tell you how it's going to be. But as I look at what's going on here, we've got things like, I try to help him to understand the situation and see it from the other side. I say, would you like it if that was said to you? And he shrugs and says, I don't care. So there are 2 things here that really stand out to me. The first is that my sense is that mum and dad are probably trying to deal with tricky challenges in the moment. So their son is going to be heightened emotionally. They might even be a little less calm than they could be if everything was nice and level and balanced. And therefore the conversations can get a little bit fiery, a little bit emotional. And as we know, you can't think straight in a high emotion state. You do and say things that you wouldn't normally say if you're balanced. High emotions equals low intelligence.
Well, that phrase, I don't care or I'm fine, is usually a symptom of a bigger problem.
That I'm not willing to be vulnerable about. I'm not
There's
feeling
too much
safe.
Emotion around this, and I'm not. That's exactly right.
And I don't like using that word, I don't feel safe, because it can be really weaponized. I've seen it used in awful ways. So I'm not talking about it like that, but rather just from an emotional point of view, I don't feel like I can disclose where I'm really at right now because I'm feeling like this might backfire. I'm not sure that I can trust you with my big emotions just now.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. There's some other things here as well in terms of Mum just saying we try to be gentle and explain. So there's lots and lots of explaining, but you'll remember from the 3 E's of effective discipline that we don't start with explaining.
Yeah.
We start with exploring, and we don't do it in the moment. We do it tonight or tomorrow or on the weekend, ideally with a glass of milk and some chocolate chip cookies or a chocolate milkshake or something that makes your child feel like it's okay. We're just going to have a chat, and we need to look at discipline in a problem-solving lens. A lot of people think of discipline as I need to do this to my child to teach them a lesson, or I need to step in with sanctions and restrictions and punishments so that they will learn. But what they really learn is all the stuff that we don't want them to learn. There are some very clear things that they will learn, though, if we work on problem-solving together. So even asking a question like, would you like it if that was said to you? Frankly, it's a manipulative question. It's a question that there's only...
It's loaded.
There's only one true answer here.
Yeah.
And he's feeling boxed in. He's feeling controlled. He feels like everyone's against him.
He's not feeling understood.
Right. Now, does that mean that we have to sit down and say, well, why don't you tell me everything? Well, maybe not. The challenge here is that I sense that discipline's such a tricky thing. And in this context, with this particular child, it's even trickier. So I wanted to flag those at the outset. After the break, we have 3 or 4 other ideas that we can run through reasonably quickly that I think are going to really help in your conversation with your son. Okay, Kylie, let's talk about it. 8-year-old being difficult, doesn't seem to want to learn. We've got a couple of different ideas that we can talk about here. My first one is really short and really simple. Developmental trajectories differ. So we've got personalities, we've got temperaments. Kids need to learn, they need to be socialized, but we shouldn't expect every 8-year-old to be at the same level. Just a quick reminder that every child is on their own developmental journey.
In our home, we've always tried to be proactive in our approaches with our children. And one of the things that we love doing is focusing on the positive. And something that is really powerful for us in our home is having conversations around the dinner table. When people have got full tummies, they're usually much happier. They're much more open and receptive to hear messages and to receive instruction. But we can do it in such a way that they don't actually feel like they're being instructed at all. So we like to have... whether it's a gratitude circle, what were you grateful for today, is something that we do regularly. But if we're working on a particular challenging behaviour in our home, we might change it.
Yep.
How are you helpful today? Or how have you seen others being helpful? And how did that make you feel?
How have you experienced kindness? How have you been kind? How have you been determined? How have you seen determination? So we just look at what the kids are struggling with and we say, well, let's ask questions about that this week.
And we've noticed that in the beginning, when we start with something new like that, often we get some pushback. Well, I don't know. I don't want to talk to you about that.
And we don't force it, but we do encourage it.
That's exactly right. And so those who want to be involved, they have the conversation, and those other children who are not willing to in that moment, they sit and they get to take it in. But over the coming days, as we continue to reinforce it, what we find more times than not is by the end of that week, we've got some buy-in.
Yeah.
We've got some realization that this is actually a good thing and this makes me feel good.
Right. Yeah. So let me add. So that was your idea, and I want to add on to it with this idea of teaching values explicitly. Sometimes there is a place where we do want to explain. And if I was sitting down with a little boy and he was making other people feel uncomfortable or he was struggling, I'd be saying things like, if we are going to be turn into grown-up men and be healthy and strong men, we need to remember this, that the good men, real men, help the people around them feel safer and stronger. So there's this really explicit teaching that's going on, and we take the time to do the explicit teaching. As our daughters have moved into adolescence, we've had conversations with them that because real men make you feel safer and stronger, if you're dating a boy and he does not make you feel safer and stronger, then this is a relationship you want to get out of. You want to explain to him that you're not feeling safer and stronger. Give him the opportunity to change. If he doesn't seem to know how to do it, get out of the relationship. He's not good enough to be a boyfriend anymore. That explicit teaching moves the needle. And I was thrilled last year when one of our daughters broke up with her boyfriend, and when I asked why, she said, because I didn't feel safer and stronger around him. I was like, oh yes, it's working. It takes a while to sink in, but it does work. Last thing, avoid punishments, avoid being punitive, avoid sanctions where possible. But remember, you're dealing with an 8-year-old, and sometimes you just have to step in and say, hey, buddy, don't want to get you in trouble, but we're going to do this for the next few days. You're going to lose the Xbox, or it's going to be X, Y, or Z, until we get to have a proper conversation about it. We're not mad at you. You're not technically in trouble. We just want the family to feel different, and we need your buy-in. So the 3 E's that I teach, explore, explain, empower, there is a 4th step. And people often miss it. I've written about it in the books. I've written about it in the blogs. I teach it when I do my presentations. But people often miss it because it doesn't start with E. And I really emphasize the 3 E's. But that 4th step after you explore, explain, and empower is if you have ongoing challenges, that you minimize the use of punitive and coercive strategies. But minimize is not the same as eliminate. Sometimes you've just got to step in and go all power hungry. And it's not because you want to, it's because your kids aren't getting it, and we've got to do a full reset. Anger is an emotion that I'm not a big fan of, but it can be really useful to help other people recognize that a reset in a relationship is required.
When I think about 8-year-olds and I think about where they are developmentally, my experience is that their emotional regulation and their capacity to recognize and understand the emotions that they're experiencing, we would call that emotional intelligence, is still very immature.
Yeah, I mean, they don't get half decent at it until somewhere between 8 and 10.
And so as a parent, it's so easy for us to jump in because we're seeing what we would deem as bad behavior and negative output. And yet what this child probably needs more than anything is understanding, and for us to explore his world and what's going on for him. And when he feels understood, chances are that relationships change, relationships strengthen, connections are made, and his ability to recognize and see the impact that his behavior is having on others will enlarge. But whenever he feels threatened, whenever he feels like he's the one who's always in trouble, whenever he feels like the world's against him, he's very closed off to learning and growing.
The only other thing that strikes me as I listen to what you're saying is, everybody talks about neurodivergent challenges, and I'm remiss to go straight there. I really do think that most kids mature through this. They learn, and with really great teaching, we can help them. But it is worth considering whether there's need for an assessment, having a chat with the doctor, and seeing if that progresses. My preference is always to see if we can navigate this stuff with really, really effective parenting and really great relationships, but we can't discount that and potentially other medical issues. Just worth throwing it out there. So to our anonymous poster, thank you so much for the question. We hope that it's helpful. If you have a question, all you need to do is go to the happyfamilies.com.au website and leave us a voice message on the podcast section. Just click the button, start talking. It's that simple. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. If you'd like more information and more resources, please visit us at happyfamilies.com.au.